Okay, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. We are thankful if you are a Patreon patron. We appreciate your support. We are very thankful if you're a YouTube subscriber. That also helps pay the bills, and you're getting the show real time if you do either of those two things. At a minimum, if you have an Amazon Prime account, please link that to your Twitch Prime account. We get paid a couple bucks a month for the privilege. You have to renew that, so please check out the instructions in the show description and it'll tell you how to do that. If you don't have any of those things, which is hard to believe anybody's not an Amazon customer, but if you don't have any of those things, please follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. Today's question from SIFTD from BackB. Former Xbox executive and good Pachter friend Ed Fries recently said that he fears Game Pass could lead to a Spotify type scenario where creators aren't being paid enough because people stop buying games like people have stopped buying songs. Is there something to his statement? If Sony and possibly even Nintendo eventually decide to launch their own Game Pass like services, could it cause another industry crash? Ed's really smart, and in all fairness, he's probably smarter than me, but he's wrong on this one. The difference between music and games is that music has no shelf life. So I actually had a Twitter comment today, some game informer or whatever his kid said, GameSpot editor said the Beatles were overrated, and I came back to him politely saying, watch the first episode of the Peter Jackson Beatles documentary on HBO, and when you watch them writing songs real time that you know, and you watch how they're noodling on the piano and composing as they go, it's the most impressive thing you've ever seen, and you realize they're genius. But the point is, the Beatles are still relevant, and they haven't created a song since 1970, and they're still relevant. Music doesn't have a shelf life. So, my daughter, who's 22, knows every word to American Pie, which is a 1971 song. That just has no shelf life. So the problem that Spotify faces is that they have to have this gigantic catalog, and the way they pay for the catalog is they pay out some percentage of their revenue, like 65% of their revenue, to all the artists based on the number of songs that are played. So when I listen to the Beatles are getting, whatever the penny per song. And if I listen, I'm going to make this up. If I pay $10 a month, and I actually pay 15, but if I pay $10 a month and they pay out 65%, $6.50. If I listen to 650 songs in a month, each artist that I listen to gets 1 penny. And so the artists are saying they're starving because Spotify is all you can eat and we're listening a lot more. Whereas if I bought the album, I paid, let's call it $15 for the CD, the old CD, or download the album, and they get $15 once, and they don't care how often I listen to it. If I buy the song on iTunes, they get $1.29. I know that Apple takes 30%, but they get a much bigger piece. Now, I think that where the artists complain, and I get this, is if I really like an artist and I say, I'll just listen on Spotify, he's only going to get 10 cents a year, because how many songs am I going to listen to and how often? Whereas if I buy his album, he's going to get $10. So I totally get it. So I have one artist whose CDs I buy, Nils Lofgren, because I follow Nils on Twitter. I like the guy. He's a genuinely good guy, and he constantly posts, if you want to support me, buy my CD, and I listen to his music. So I own a CD. I still listen to him on Spotify, but I buy a CD because that's how I support the guy that I like. And you should do that too. Unfortunately, games don't have a shelf life like that. So Shane and I were having a little argument a few episodes ago about Game Pass and whether anybody wants to play Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, which came out in 2001. 2001, I think. 2000 or 2001. And it was an awesome game, and I loved it. It was like my favorite Tony Hawk game ever. But Shane said, nobody wants to play that. The graphics suck. And that's only 20 years old. We're talking about songs that are 50 years old that people listen to, and 60 and 70. So the truth is, no, games don't have a shelf life of 20 years. They probably have a shelf life of 10, maybe 15. And the ones you really want to play are the ones that are 5 years old and newer. So you're not going to have a Game Pass service where everybody's spending their hours playing Tony Hawk 3, they're going to be spending their hours playing last year's Call of Duty. And so the royalty is going to go to the guys that are creating the content. Now Microsoft's going to want to own as much as they can, but the fact is, let's pretend that Game Pass costs $10 again, and 65% is paid out. $6.50 per user. They're going to look at the number of hours you play in total, and then how much you play of a particular publisher's games. So if EA content is 10% of your consumption, EA gets 65 cents a month for each Game Pass subscriber, and they're fine with that. And that actually adds up to a lot of money because there's 25 million Game Pass subscribers. So EA is getting $17 million a month for having its catalog on Game Pass, which is a lot of money. That turns into $200 million a year. How many of those people are buying EA games? Remember, the only games on there are a year old and older. So if you play FIFA from 2 years ago or Madden from 2 years ago, that might make you more likely to play FIFA or Madden this year. If you're playing the last one, you're playing Ultimate Team, and they get 65 or 70% of all in-game spend. So they're really happy if it converts people. So I don't think that's right. I don't think that the games industry is such that people will stop buying games altogether. I think Microsoft hopes it's that way. But if you look at, Game Pass, there'd never been an Activision game on it. Activision wouldn't license it, so they bought the company. But I don't think you're going to get new titles. I don't think anybody's going to do that. If Sony launches their own service, Sony's already been very clear they don't believe in day and date. So even Sony first party won't be on there. The old stuff will be on there. I don't think it'll ever get that big with old stuff. Nintendo, same. I don't think Nintendo ever launches a service with day and date new titles. What I think Nintendo's more likely to do is launch a service with catalog only and charge something much more modest, like $5 a month. If Nintendo did that, because Nintendo's catalog is probably bigger than anybody's, probably bigger than everybody's combined. Nintendo could launch a $5 a month Game Pass with 100 titles on it. And those 100 titles could be every game, 10 from every year, 2007 through 16. And they'd be essentially DS and 3DS games. And so there'd be 100 of them to launch. And then guess what? Every month there'd be 5 new games, or whatever. When they'd run out of games? About 10 years in. So Nintendo could do that. Who would pay $5 a month to play every DS title ever made? And then let's pretend every month there'd be 3 Game Boy Advance games and 1 Switch game, would come out, something like that. You would pay forever. You'd be a $5 a month subscriber in perpetuity. How many people would do that? Easily 100 million. So Nintendo would be making $500 million a month monetizing its catalog. That's worth it. They would do it. So I actually think if they do it, they're likely to do that. And remember, Nintendo content, almost all is first party. Pokemon's not. It's kind of first party. Bayonetta's not. There's a handful of games that are not. But my God, Zelda, Mario, Metroid, Kirby. Oh my God, there's so many titles. I once did a count of Nintendo brands. So Mario Odyssey is not a brand. Mario's a brand. And there were 30. There were 30 first-party brands that Nintendo has made over the last 20 years, and probably 4 versions of each. And then lesser titles. Oh my God, WarioWare. I would pay $5 a month just to play WarioWare. For real. And because all the different WarioWares, there's so much to do. So I think Nintendo is the best positioned company to do subscription because their content is so amazing. Nintendo is to games what Disney is to TV and movies, and Disney is pulling off Disney Plus with its own content. So Nintendo could totally do that. Hope that's responsive. I don't think it's going to cause another industry crash. The right way to do all of this is keep the first party good content for the consoles and for new releases, just like movies in movie theaters, and put the older content like Seinfeld on streaming services. Of course, occasionally you got to release The Mandalorian, stuff like that. But to be fair, and again, I think this has changed as these shows have had various levels of success. I don't think The Mandalorian was ever planned to be a movie franchise. I think they made a TV show, and I think they made it a niche TV show, and they weren't sure they could do it on broadcast ABC. And I don't think they ever planned to make 20 episodes a year. But a movie TV show like Loki, I think they thought it would be just Disney Plus, and the reception was so great. Now I think Loki's going to be a movie. They haven't announced that, but the character was so compelling. WandaVision, no, the show was cute, but you don't really care more Wanda. I mean, you'll watch WandaVision next year. Loki, though, my God, he was so interesting. And he was a really small character. So I think Disney's really smart about using the streaming service as a development tool. And I think Nintendo could be smart like that and could have lesser characters, have their own kind of games on the streaming service. But the key is catalog. You actually subscribe to Disney Plus, not as an adult, but with family, because you want your kids to see Hannah Montana, whatever's on the Disney Channel. iCarly, I don't even know if that's Disney, it could be Nickelodeon. But the old Disney shows, Lizzie McGuire, all the old Disney shows. And your kids love that. And that's how you keep it going. So Disney can pull it off because they've got, 30, 40 years of content. Nintendo can pull it off because they have 30, 40 years of content. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor. We are thankful if you are a Patreon patron. We appreciate the patronage. We are thankful if you have linked your Twitch Prime account to your Amazon Prime account. We get paid for that. We are thankful if you're a YouTube subscriber. And if you're YouTube or Patreon, you're getting this real time. If you aren't paying for Patreon or paying as a YouTube subscriber, you have to wait a week to get the content for free. So it's a week late, and obviously all my opinions change every week. But at least follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. We'll see you next week.